So today we're gonna be taking you through the big rocks of squatting. So the big rocks of the squat are brace, tension, and mid-foot pressure. So first let's jump into the idea of bracing and what is it and how it relates to the squat. So before we dive deeper into bracing and how to perform an effective brace in a squat, we need to understand core position. And core position is simply putting the rib cage positioned over the pelvis. So we would position the rib cage over and the pelvis under to create what we like to call a 360-degree Coke can position, where we look like a cylindrical Coke can. We can also think of this as closed scissors or open scissors. Open scissors is when we would have the rib cage flared and our pelvis pointing down, whereas closed scissors, the core position that we're looking for is when the rib cage is positioned down and the pelvis positioned under. So you want to focus on closed scissors. So now that we understand what core position we want to find when performing a squat, we can now start to translate that into building an effective brace for the squat. So the one thing that we want to really focus on when building a good brace for squat is that it's not more air in, it's more pressure. So we want to maintain the ribs down position with our pelvis positioned under. If you're thinking with your pelvis, imagine if you're wearing a belt buckle, you're trying to keep your belt buckle pulled up to your chin the whole time. So ribs are positioned down, belt buckle is pulled up to your chin. From there, you want to maintain and hold that position and then take air in. The biggest mistake that people make when taking air in is that they take this massive breath in, they lose their rib cage or stacked position that we spoke about before, and then they completely lose their intra-abdominal pressure. Remember, the goal of bracing is to build high amounts of pressure in your abdominal area, not to take in as much air as possible. So now that we understand core position and what a brace is, we now need to go through the steps of how to actually brace. So you want to unrack the bar on your back, you're going to step back and set your feet ready to squat. Before you can breathe air in, you need to get rid of all the current air in your lungs. So you're going to start with a full long exhale and try and get as skinny through the waist as possible. This will also simultaneously set our core / stack position that we spoke about before. From here, maintain that stack position and then take air in, trying to focus on breathing deep into the belly button while maintaining the stack position. And just to reiterate again, we want to focus on more pressure, not more air. So please don't take in a massive gulp of air. Focus on feeling pressure in your abdominal area. You don't need huge amounts of air to feel this pressure. All the same steps apply if you are wearing no belt or wearing a belt, but if you are wearing a belt, you will be able to feel more pressure and also lift bigger weights. So if you do have access to a belt, we do recommend wearing a belt. So the next big rock of the squat is tension. So bracing helps us to build tension, but we can also focus on using our muscles in our upper body to help build tension as well, specifically the mid-back and the lats. So for mid-back tension, simply the cue that you want to focus on is obviously setting our stack position, maintaining that the whole time, but then focus on pinching and squeezing your shoulder blades together. The same that you would do in like a seated row or any row variation where you pinch and squeeze the shoulder blades together. You want to focus on doing this when the bar is on your back. This will also help create a shelf for the bar to sit on your back muscles. The other part of creating tension is using our lats. Our lats are these big muscles that run across our back, and when we get them into a shortened position can create a lot of tension and help create a rigid torso. So the cue that you want to use for this is think about pulling the bar down into your back or trying to bend the bar over your back. The other cue that you can focus on is trying to touch your elbows together. So you're pinching and squeezing your shoulder blades together for mid-back tension and pulling the bar down and trying to touch your elbows together for lat tension. Now, the reason you want to build tension in a squat is because when we are lifting, we are trying to transfer force. We put force into the ground and then inadvertently the ground gives us ground reaction forces back up our body and into the barbell. The more stiff and rigid our body can be, the easier it will be for force to transfer. So the stiffer and tighter you can get, you'll be able to lift more weight more effectively. The final big rock of the squat is mid-foot pressure. So when we're talking about mid-foot pressure, we want to look at our foot as a tripod foot. And what we mean by this is that we have our 3 points of contact. We have our heel at the back, and then we have the 2 points of our forefoot up the top. So we want to make sure that pressure is going through all 3 points nice and evenly. If you were to think about rocking forward on your toes, that would be more forefoot pressure. If you're rocking back onto your heels, that would be more heel pressure. We want to find pressure right in the middle of our foot. So if you think about this when you're wearing a pair of shoes, your shoelaces, it'd be about the second cross down where you want to feel that pressure. Now, the reason you want to maintain midfoot pressure when squatting is one, it's going to help you balance a lot better and create a more effective squat. If you rock forward onto your toes, you won't be able to squat as efficiently or lift as much weight. And if you rock too far back, you also won't be able to squat as efficiently. So you want to make sure that you are maintaining that midfoot pressure. The second reason is you want to also help with force transfer, which we spoke about in the previous point. When you have a nice rock solid foundation into the ground, you're going to be able to apply and transfer force into the ground much more efficiently. If you focus on maintaining midfoot pressure in the squat, you're going to make your reps feel more consistent and smooth. It'll be much easier to replicate these reps. Smoother reps are going to be stronger reps. So we've discussed the 3 big rocks of the squat, and they're the 3 things that you must focus on in order to have an excellent squat, but you're probably wondering about a few other things. And we call these the little rocks of the squat. So one of these things would be foot position. Do I have my feet pointed straight out? Do I have them turned out? Do I have my feet wide apart? Do I have it closer stance? These are all gonna be on the person, and these will change from person to person. Play around with what stance feels the best for you. Some other little rocks would be knee travel, footwear, should I wear flats or heels? Gonna be completely dependent on the person. You can try both and see which works better for you. Torso angle, bigger people, smaller people, their torso angle will change depending on how big the person is. So again, if you lean a little bit more forward in the squat, it's not necessarily bad. Just focus on the big rocks of the squat and you'll have an awesome squat. And finally, equipment. Should you wear heels, knee sleeves, belt? Again, this is all for preference. These tools are potentially gonna help you lift more weight, but if you don't use these tools and focus on the big rocks, you will have a great squat. And the goal of the little rocks is to help you achieve the big rocks. It always funnels back to the big rocks. So if you're gonna take anything from this video, please focus on those 3 big rocks that we spoke about before. If you have any further questions on the big rocks of the squat, please chuck them in our Discord and join our Discord. If you're interested in coaching with us, DM us for coaching. And finally, if you're looking for a beginner entry point to some strength training, have a look into the Strength Culture Training app. And as always, happy lifting. I didn't do like, subscribe, but